Good afternoon and welcome to the City Council meeting for the City of International Falls for Monday, February 5, 2018. Would ask all to please arise and pledge allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Thank you. I would ask the administrator to note the roll call with Councillor Jacksaw absent on vacation. The other 4 members of the council are present. Move to the agenda, and we have 2 additions to consider. One under new business, item number 7 is to approve a reference letter for application to assist in funding the Dragon Boat Festival and Tug of War. And then secondly, building and official zoning administrator report. With that, your pleasure with the addition, with the agenda and the additions. Motion by Councillor Briggs to approve the agenda with the additions. Second by Councillor Pearson. Discussion on the motion or the agenda.
That include the deletion?
Oh, excuse me, and the deletion, thank you. The deletion is taking off the annual contingency until we have further research on that item. That's in your motion, okay? To
Yes,
take that deletion out? And second's okay with that? All right. Chair would then call the question on the agenda with the additions and the deletion.
Aye.
Oh, yes, motion is carried. Agenda is approved with the addition and deletions. Move to the approval of minutes. Tuesday, January 16th, regular City Council meeting. Motion by Councillor Briggs. Second by Councillor Droba. Approve the minutes of the January 16 regular City Council meeting. Discussion on the motion or the agenda, or the minutes, excuse me. Hearing none, question.
Aye.
I'll vote yes. Motion is carried. Minutes for January 16 approved. And then we have the minutes for the special City Council meeting on Monday, January 29.
Move.
Motion by Councillor Briggs. Second by Councillor Pearson. Approve the minutes. Discussion on the motion or the minutes. Hearing none, question.
Aye.
I vote yes. Motion is carried, and minutes for the special meeting also approved. Thank you. Move to the resolution on transfers and payment of claims. We have a transfer to the fund number 101 of the general fund from the lodging tax fund of $318.43. Accounts payable claims for the City of International Falls, $308,732.42. Airport Commission claims of $127,138.35. And Airport Commission Terminal Project claims of $89,749.57. Your pleasure with the resolution.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make that resolution, approve it. Motion to approve.
Motion by Councillor Jacksaw. Second by Councillor Pearson to adopt the resolution approving the transfers and the payment of claims. Discussion. Question.
Aye.
Aye.
I'll vote yes. Motion is carried. Resolution is adopted, and approval is given for the transfers and the payment of claims. Thank you. Go to the audience. Is there anyone in the audience that has something to bring to the attention of the council that is not on the agenda at this time? Thank Thank you, and there'll be another opportunity at the end of the meeting for audience participation. With that, we would go to the opening of bids or quotes, and we have 3 quotes to purchase a 2018 Ford Taurus Police Interceptor and 1 2018 Ford Police Utility SUV. And we have 3 quotes. One from Worley Motors. The SUV is $30,152. The Ford Taurus is $25,951 for a total of $56,103. Bob Loth Ford, I believe that's Bemidji, and that's the SUV is $30,321, and the Taurus is $26,613 for a total of $56,934. And then Hibbing Ford, the SUV is $29,218.45. The Taurus Interceptor is $26,246.45 for a total of $55,464.90. Council's pleasure with that.
That's right.
Please, Councilor Droba.
I would make a motion to accept Worley Motors' bid on both the police utility SUV and the Ford Taurus Interceptor at this time.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Droba to accept the quote of Worley Motors. At the SUV is $30,152. The Taurus and the Interceptor is $25,951 for a total of $56,103. Second by Councilor Briggs. Discussion. Councilor Jackson.
Is there no way we can split the bid up? We're stuck with a net bid for the, because if we could, we'd save $1,000.
Right, we could split them up. In reviewing all the bids, I went out and got the state bid price, and I also spoke with Bob Loth Ford out of Bemidji, just so we in doing so, you asked for quotes on police vehicles, and provide them with spec sheets. Variation in there, in that. A very competitive quote. And in reviewing this upon my return, I see that Mr. Worley built our vehicles exactly as the last ones, which is how we'd like them built. And add one of the wiring packages, which is a $524 difference. Right now, as it stands, there'd be a net difference of about $638 between all of them. That's just, in my opinion, I would recommend that we just go with our local. To get exactly what we want. I went back to Hibbing Ford and said, I want this other item added on to that. It's going to raise the price. I would recommend we stay with the local dealer.
Councilor Droba.
And I reviewed it, and I realized that Worley Motors was a little bit more expensive than some of the other ones, but the reality is they are local. They're here. I believe there would have to be a delivery cost if we were going to go and pick them up in Bemidji or in Hibbing. So that's just adding time on our staff to go and pick up the vehicles. If we can have them delivered right here into town for $500-600, it's not a concern for me.
Further discussion or questions with regard to the quotes? Certainly agree with Councilor Droba on the cost. If we have to send 3 people to secure the 2 vehicles, the cost for a day of travel and the expense of traveling is going to be more than the $638 difference. So. Further discussion? Question on the acceptance of the quote of Worley Motors?
Aye.
I'll vote yes. Motion is carried, and the quote of Worley Motors is accepted. Thank you. Move to new business. First item under new business is to authorize the advertisement for bids for 9th Avenue street improvements. And City Administrator, have a memo from
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Council, the Public Works Director submitted a memo dated January 30th, and he's just recommending that the City Council by motion allowing the staff to advertise for the municipal project to reconstruct 9th Avenue. And that project, as he pointed out in his memo, would be a reconstruction of 9th Avenue, and it include excavation, stabilization, bituminous paving, and then sidewalk and driveway entrance repairs on 9th Avenue. And between 11th Street and 17th Street.
Council's pleasure with that, authorizing that advertisement for the bids for the improvement of 9th Avenue.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to allow the advertising.
Motion by Councilor Jackson, second by Councilor Pearson to approve the advertising for bids for 9th Avenue street improvements from 11th Street to 17th Street. Discussion. Hearing none. Question.
Aye.
And I'll vote yes. Motion is carried and authorization is approved. Thank you. And we have a second project. City Administrator, you want to outline that one?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The second motion would be to allow city-funded project, and that would be to do a full reconstruction of Crescent Drive, and that would extend basically from where Memorial Drive meet south to the cul-de-sac. That would involve the same items I just it is a well-designed street, so there'll be some culvert replacements, storm sewer adjustments, and then bitumen.
Council's pleasure with the advertising for that project. Motion by Councilor Briggs, second by Councilor Pearson to approve the authorizing of the advertisement for the bids for Crescent Drive street improvements. Discussion? Councilor Droba.
And we have this project completely funded for this summer?
We've been setting aside funds for a number of years. Should be sufficient.
Okay.
Depends on bid cost.
And my understanding of talking with the Public Works Director is we're going to be lowering that road bed down some, and it could take, might take some work with the ditches. They might be realigned a little bit, or the depth, have less depth to them.
That's correct. Yep.
And
Less steep slope on the ditches on both sides.
And it could be some water line work, or is it of sufficient depth to...
I can't say for sure. I know that they were shooting elevations to make sufficient cover. I don't know if that's going to be part of this project. I haven't actually read this plans and specifications. WSN did prepare them under consulting engineer. They forwarded all those to Gary, and he.
And the schedule for these two projects would be to advertise them and have the bid opening on March the 7th, so they have 1 month, contractors that have 1 month to prepare bids for these two projects. Further discussion.
I think your concern about the water lines is well taken, and I'm sure Gary thought of it, but I think we should still verify just to make sure, so.
I don't know how much they're lowering the road bed, but I know that it's coming down a little bit, because what's there was the former State Highway 53, and it has not been worked on since then, so.
I would also hope that we would know the age of the water and sewer lines so far as any replacement needed that we talked about in previous meetings. Supposedly done in their study anyway.
Thank you. Further discussion? Hearing none, question.
Aye.
I'll vote yes, motion is carried, and authorization is approved for advertising for bids on Crescent Drive street improvements. Thank you. Item number 3 is a resolution requesting municipal consent for Couchiching County Project State Aid 036-332-003 to resurface County State Aid Highway 332 from County State Aid 24 to County State Aid 155 within the municipal corporate limits. Your pleasure with the resolution.
Move.
Motion by Councillor Briggs to adopt the resolution.
Second.
Second by Councillor Jacksaw.
Thank you.
Discussion. And we have the county engineer, Joe Sutherland, is here if you have any questions with regard to that project. He's included a map in the information. Into that is going to be milling down the bituminous and resurfacing.
About 19 inches of asphalt on top of clay. It's an old MnDOT design as we understand it, so not, maybe just sort of down into the subgrade. The cracks were so big and so deep, there's problems with the base there. We thought we had to
Thank you, Joe. That's very good because that is one of the most important roads in this county. A great deal of material for the operation of the paper mill is counting on that good road.
And Mr. Mayor, it's desperately in need of repair too. Private, you'll see why.
Further questions or discussion? Hearing none, question.
Aye.
I'll vote yes. Motion is carried. Resolution is adopted and approval is given for the work on County State Aid Highway 332. Thank you. Item number 4 under new business is to authorize Couchiching County and the Couchiching Economic Development Authority staff to submit a conditional use permit, rezoning, and other related permit applications to the City of Rainier for rock removal from the foreign trade zone site adjacent to County Road 144 and the Canadian National Railway. Council's pleasure with that?
Move.
Motion by Councillor Briggs.
Second.
Second by Councillor Droba. Questions or discussion?
I would just say, wish it would have happened years ago when we had the opportunity, but certainly a prime spot to take up some rock and further develop the site so that hopefully in the future somebody would have a use for it where they wouldn't right now in the condition that it's in.
And I guess maybe, I don't know, does anyone want to speak to that? I know we have Commissioner Pavlik here and County Engineer Sutherland, and then Executive Director of the Couchiching Economic Development Authority, Nevin, and we're also looking for that conditional use permit, the possibility that the foreign trade zone site could be sold or could be leased. That correct understanding? So that's also a part of why we're seeking the conditional use permit and rezoning. And the county did have a conditional use permit at one time for that site, but then the Rainier annexed that foreign trade zone site. Joe, do you want to speak to that?
briefly, it's certainly for 2010, the foreign trade zone site was annexed. And the county highway department secured the 2015 implementation.
This group will be going to the Rainier City Council or to the Rainier Planning Commission?
Right, it's our understanding that we'll start with the planning commission and that they will city council.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Provided that the rock can be used. What I don't understand is is it just the need for rock for Rainier's city streets, or is this connected to economic development? Because I'm hearing both things.
Nothing to do with Rainier or their use of the rock. No, we just, because they have annexed it.
So they want the rock though, right? Oh, they don't want the rock. Sorry, I misunderstood. Okay.
Sir, just because the foreign trade zone site is in the Rainier city limits as part of the annexation.
Yeah.
The city and the county jointly, the city of International Falls and Cooch County jointly own the property, so part of why we were. Would be that if there's a sale, proceeds go to the International Falls.
All right, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I was thinking there was a rock sale here, but okay.
This goes to the county board at the meeting tomorrow, February the 6th. Thank you. Further discussion?
I'd just like
Councillor Groba.
I'd just like to say thank you for catching me up, because I had read this in my packet and I didn't know the history of how we got, just like Councillor Briggs had said, it should have happened a long time ago, and I hadn't heard anything leading up to it, so it's nice to get the explanation of how it got here in front of the council today, so thank you.
Another question, though. It does say for rock removal. That's where I'm getting the idea.
That would be, the conditional use permit would allow for rock removal.
Okay. And so the rock removal would be for the purpose of?
Well, it could be for anyone's purpose.
To whoever
It
has
could be,
need for it.
could be for any purpose, but also includes the possibility that the foreign trade zone could be sold with a conditional use permit or leased with a conditional use permit. So all of those possibilities are out there. That would be up to the city and county to decide.
Okay.
Other questions or discussion? Not question.
Aye.
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 I'll vote yes, motion is carried and authorization is approved. Thank you. Thank you.
Dave, we have a whole nother rest of the meeting to go.
I want to make sure you pass this so I didn't have to pull it tomorrow.
Thank you, everybody.
Item number 5 under new business is to approve the resolution authorization the Minnesota Department of Transportation grant agreement for the general obligation bond proceeds for the construction grant for the new passenger terminal Phase 2 project at the International Falls Airport. Your pleasure with that.
Move.
Motion by Councillor Briggs, second by Councillor Pearson. Discussion. State had granted $3 million, and this project will take up $2.3 million of that $3 million for Phase 2. The balance will come from the Federal Aviation Administration.
Will that impact our $1 million that we received
This will all be
over and above?
FAA, yes, this is FAA discretionary funds and state bonding funds.
I have had the pleasure of using the terminal, the new terminal lately. It's lovely.
A lot of good
Thank you.
comments about it.
Excuse me?
We get a lot of good comments. about
Yeah, very nice. Good work.
Thank you. Further discussion? Not, we'll call the question on the resolution.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll vote yes. Motion is carried. Resolution is adopted, approving the execution of the grant agreement with MnDOT on those state bonds. Item number 7, approve preparing a reference letter for the EMT operation funding application to assist in funding the 7th Annual Border Waters Dragon Boat Festival and Tug of War. And the reference letter, City Administrator?
Mr. Mayor, we had a request from the people that are organizing the 7th Annual Border Waters Dragon Boat Festival and the Tug of War, and they're contemplating submitting an application to assist through Minnesota through the EMT operation funding application. Part of that application, the state reference letters, and because it is being conducted on property that the city owns over at the boat, they'd like a reference letter in support, and as the venue and property owner, we're council approval to approve preparing a reference for that grant application. The city won't be providing the grant application back to the National Falls side with people. Francis organizing the. So they just want a reference letter from in support of the project.
Okay, council's pleasure with preparing a reference letter to Explore Minnesota for the grant application. Motion by Councilor Briggs.
I'll second.
Second by Councilor Jackson. Discussion.
This will highlight our sister Francis this summer event, so it should be a plus for us. And they're putting all the effort into it, so.
Good. Further discussion on preparing a reference letter? Hearing none, question.
Aye.
I'll vote yes. Motion is carried, and approval is given for a reference letter to Explore Minnesota. Thank you. Further under new business? Move to the reports of boards, committees, and department heads. City Administrator.
I have no report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. City Attorney.
Mr. Mayor,
Welcome back.
I apologize for being late, but I was in front of Judge LeDuc and taking a plea and a sentence on DUI case that one of the chief's officers one of his new officers did a good job on, and tomorrow I have over 40 cases in front of the judge that involve city criminal charges. So lots of activity going on. 40 in one day. That's the only special thing. I've been gone for a while, but stayed in touch with Administrator Anderson and discuss in front of some of the committees coming up.
Very good.
That's it.
Welcome back, and good luck with your court cases tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll move to department heads, and have the police department report for January and the annual report. Chief Maston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Start with my January report. As far as the activity for the police department for January 2018, we started a new online training process with Patrol Online. This was suggested to us by the League of Minnesota Cities. This is an amount of credits to keep their licenses. Helps us eliminate some of the traveling out of town and a little of the training. Part of that seems to be going well. We had a couple presentations, one to Rainy River Community College and one to the Strive program. Obviously assisting with the Icebox Days events. The Customs and Border Protection's Explorers started riding with us this month to get a little. And our drug enforcement officer began his field training with the drug task. Calls for service, you'll see we had 261 compared to 348 last year. That's a bit lower in calls for service, but we had, with that time, we had much more traffic enforcement. So we had 127 traffic stops compared to 2 last year. 38 medical assists and 20 custodial arrests. So we increased the officers' field activity, have generated more reports, there were more arrests and more traffic enforcement done in the month of January. That moves into my annual report for 2017. And I don't have all the fancy graphs that some of these guys have, but I'm working on it. I broke it down for you just to give you an overview of our department, where we started in 2017 and how we ended. I started with the staffing and some of the training that the officers went through outside of the mandatory post-training classes. Also highlighted our community engagement. Community engagement for the department last year and even going forward will become increasingly more important. Our officers are going to be in the field, presentations to different community groups, to get more and more requests. We even have one next week in Fort France. Active in that area, and I'm pretty pleased with that. Technology, we've seen some changes this past year, bringing in the iCrime Fighter with our smartphones and getting rid of some ways of gathering statements, so taking photographs and getting them over to the prosecuting attorney's office. So we've gained some ground there. I'm expecting things to get even better once the records management system with Zerker. Not only is that going to give our officers a lot more power in the field to get quicker, a lot better information readily available for reporting statistics. So when I give you a report like this, I'll be able to break it down and what kind of crimes we actually are seeing. I put in there for 2016, our department averaged 488.6 calls a month, calls for service, and broke that down for you. And you'll see in 2017 we were relatively the same with an average of 473 calls for service a month. Our average, our actual numbers for 2017, I took a look at those. I saw that we had 4,070 general calls. We conducted 1,122 traffic stops, 316 medical assists, and we made 182 custodial arrests. So we had our activity numbers for the year was 5,690, so it's about 5,700 incidents throughout the year that officers were involved in. So that's quite active for a particular community and agency work. We had an average of 90.5 ICRs a month with year-end. Going into 2018, once we come online with Zerker, you'll see work be completed for I would highlight the activity of our local drug investigators for 2017 prior to joining the task force this year. We executed 20 search warrants locally, 100 plus grams of methamphetamine, $12,792 U.S. currency and a little bit of Canadian currency. Approximate street value of the controlled substance that our officers took off the street in 2017 was $68,000. I would say that our officers have been doing a very good job. They've been keeping the prosecutors busy, and pretty happy with the balance of proactive police work along with the community. Look forward to more of that in 2018, and That's about all. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on either of those reports.
Okay, council's questions with regard to the January report or the annual report by Chief Maston. Councilor Droba.
It's not a question in any capacity, but everything you said, the one thing that I really, really like is we're trying to take things off the street. We're doing the police work that needs to happen, but I love the fact that you're being engaged in the community and being proactive so that people want to call the police or they know who's going to be coming, and just having a better relationship with the citizens, I think actually helps quite a bit in being proactive to crime rather than enforcing crime. So I think that this was a great report, and thank you so much. And if you don't hear it from the average citizen, I'm telling you, you guys are doing a great job.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Also, to kind of highlight the importance of us belonging to that task force, when you put in perspective the meth they took off the street at 334 grams, that's almost 50 pounds by my math. That's a lot of meth.
I will say that it's a lot. But it is a lot, and I can tell you that.
I stand corrected. Instead of pounds, it's ounces.
It's a lot, but I will tell you that I was very pleased because when I went to the first meeting with Paul Bunyan Drug Task Force, the numbers were broken down by areas that are dedicated, who have dedicated task force members. So I was our officers stacked up against their investigators very impressively.
Point is, that's still a lot of meth.
I have a question, and maybe you explained it and I missed it. On the back side of this, you have 2018, 2017?
Yes.
Okay.
The 2011 January report.
Yeah. We had 304, oh, it's from January to January. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking that. All right. Thank you.
I too would like to commend the chief and the department on their community engagement. I think it's been just absolutely outstanding. I do have a question with regard to the drug situation. Approximately how many arrests were made with the warrants? Is that something you care to share, or is that something you prefer not to?
That's something that breaking down, but oftentimes when we go into it, we have a search warrant. The short answer is I don't have the answer for you. My explanation for that is oftentimes we'll go in and do a search warrant where a number of arrests might stem out of that warrant. Last week or the week before, we did a search warrant. I believe we took 5 people into custody. So the number of warrants in a correlation don't have a specific reporting system the way it is now. They'll show a search warrant and a charge, but it may not say that, okay, we arrested another person there. Package like I wish it would.
Okay. And I guess would most of the arrests result in a conviction on drugs? Is that?
We always hope so.
You know, and again, I don't have statistics that, but I would say, first of all, to your earlier question, I would say that the number of criminal charges likely exceed the number of warrants that were executed. I would estimate that, 20 to 35 criminal charges probably emanated from those 20 warrants. With regard to, there are very few drug cases resulted from warrants where there are not convictions. Sometimes there may not, for instance, like in a situation where there was a warrant and there were 5 arrests. I mean, ultimately, might be one of those 5 people that it's determined on further investigation there's not enough evidence to convict them of a crime. So there may be some filtering out of people initially charged. But I can commend the chief and his officers. They do a great job. They're very thorough. They are well trained. They follow the rules. And where cases break down, where there are charges that don't result in convictions, it's typically because there's been some problem with the way the evidence was obtained, were their rights followed, and did you get a proper warrant, and our officers do it properly without taking shortcuts that oftentimes result in guilty people going free because their rights were violated. We have had almost none of that in our area, and it's because of the good job that our officers do it, and they do it right. Yes, they want to get the drugs off the street, but they also recognize and observe the civil rights that we all have as citizens here in the United States, and so they just do a great job. And they're, we don't have any money, but we really need more. I mean, they are spread thin, and they do a great job with the manpower they have. But that's one. That's a difficult job about being and I'm kind of editorializing here, but people ask me about, how's the city doing? Why don't they do this? Why don't they do that? And issues with streets. We got issues with law enforcement and crime, and it's hard to determine, what are the proper priorities in how to do things. It's a difficult job that the council has. Our officers maximize. We're getting good return for the money that we're investing, and I just I haven't had an issue in 10 years as the city attorney. Never had a case go bad because the officers didn't do their job correctly, and they're wonderful to work with. We oftentimes don't know that we're going to have a trial until a day or two before it happens, and through hoops when they're put on notice and participate. Very proud, and I think we have, for a community our size, we have a relatively safe, crime-free. It's a nice, safe place to live, safer than most.
A lot of folks can't believe the number of cars that are running at the grocery store with the keys left in them, and I shouldn't say that too loudly, but but nevertheless, it goes to your point that
we're going to have a spike in auto theft.
But you're right. We really do have a very safe community, thanks to our officers, and thank you to your department and you, Chief, for your relationship with the county, with the Customs and Border Protection, with the Border Patrol, with the DNR. All of you working together. I know that you have monthly meetings and get together on working on law enforcement in this whole area. So, terrific work. Further questions or comments for the Chief with regard to his reports? Thank you for great reports. Great work. Chief Manassa.
Thank you, Mayor. The monthly report for the fire and EMS. For the month of January, the fire department had 7 call-outs. 6 of those were in the city, and 1 was in the rural area. There was one response that I was sent to for investigation, and then we had 4 CN train fills. Our monthly meetings for the fire department were on the 18th of January. We had a regular business meeting, we had a relief association meeting, and then We are finishing up the training for our new firefighters. We had put 7 on earlier this fall. They are just now completing their training, and they did their final test out on Saturday. All of them passed. They did very, very well, so we're very proud to say that we have 7 new full-fledged firefighters with certificates in hand, so very happy to report that they did very, very good. Ambulance for the month of January was quite busy. We had 99 911 calls, 68 transfers for a total of 167 runs in the month of January. I think we were up in the about 120 range about 15 days into the month. We were just rolling steady there. It was quite a month for our crew, so that's 40 above what we did last year for the month of January. So again, quite busy for those individuals. Our monthly meeting and training for the ambulance was on the 10th. We did regular business meeting, and then we did training on strokes and seizures. We did have a few community events, as Chief Maston mentioned. We did do the fireworks for the Icebox Days, and then a little bit of help and support for the Arrowhead 135. Both great events, and those are pretty fun events for our firefighters to do for the fireworks. Enjoy doing that quite a bit, and it's always a good time, so appreciate that. Any questions I can answer?
Questions for Chief Manassa? I would just comment, Chief, on the Canadian National, Paul Nevenin from the Kuching Economic Development Authority, and I had an opportunity to meet with CN officials from Winnipeg, and they had nothing but the highest regard for you and your staff in helping with those train fills.
Thank you.
Very, very important.
We've kind of got unofficial word that when they finish that second track there they're working on, that we can expect those numbers to possibly double. So we're going to look at potentially doing a little bit different route on how we service them, make it a little more user-friendly for our engineers that go and do that, and then not tie up resources as bad too. So we're going to look at some alternatives on how we can do that a little better when the time comes.
They noted great work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? And that is an outstanding month, both in terms of 9/11 calls and transfers. Wow. I mean, that's a lot of hours on the road.
Yeah, and I don't know why, but it was a busy month. There was no common theme there. It was just a busy month. So,
other questions? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Very well done. Let's see, we're going to go to the building official, zoning administrator, Kelly Myers.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I did bombard you a little bit with information there, but I thought it was all pertinent. The first one I have dated there is January 30th. That's basically the fourth quarter report, but I also added in the first 3 quarters to go with it. Numbers for the construction values actually was down this year. Permit numbers are staying very much the same. We had 228 in 15, 229 in 16, and 228 in 17. That seems awful close, but that's where our permits came in. The numbers have actually changed mainly from the construction values, mainly because in 16 we had the airport, which was a large one, and we did have Tim Hortons, and there was a couple other ones in play. So the numbers were actually large that year because of those bigger projects. We did not have a big construction project last year in the commercial side, so this is basically related to smaller residential and smaller commercial projects throughout that year. You do see on the third line item there, it shows that's the permits, permit fees that were collected per year for 15, 16, and 17, and you do see that actually 17 has dropped down from where we were in those years with the construction values because they're based on validation. The part that to me that's very interesting is that our fees are actually should show an increase of next year because of our fee schedule, And we do have some projects that are on the works right now that are going to be coming at those points. Then what I did at the second phase there, I actually did on a memo I gave you from February 2nd that basically shows the activity through that period, where we show the 4 new homes were constructed between 15 and 17. 3 existing buildings were renovated to mixed use, which included residential. What that is we have 3 businesses in town where the people reside right in that structure. So that's why it's mixed use like that. 22 complete home renovations. That is due through that period. Quite a few of those are due to Kutaska projects, but there's also the normal resident that actually is doing that progress too. So when I say complete renovations, that's basically pretty much gutted the house and redid that structure. So that's a good sign. The number I thought was kind of extremely large was the garage thing. There was 32 garages built in that period of time. I think that's a lot, but that's what we like to see around here, I guess, is we have a lot of toys in this area, and Aston's use, I think we want to keep stuff locked up. It probably makes it better for them too, I would. Did have 2 fully remodeled duplexes. That was family living where they were separate homes. We do have a church building on 7th Street that is. They've been renovating it to make it a multi-unit structure, but it's not progressing as fast as I would like to see it right now. And then of course the three commercial demolitions. I actually made a mistake on here, and we showed that the number was 11 total structures. It was actually 16. So what I'd like to do is I got another sheet here that I did. This is one that was done by Chief Jerry Jensen at the time. We kind of kept a running tally. This is from 1972 to date. Buildings were demolished. Sheds, structures.
That's almost 50 years. Well, 46
Yeah,
years.
it's kind of the start of the program, so. Kind of some interesting numbers there. The one thing it doesn't break up for us real well, though, is the one couple years here, I spoke with the mayor a little bit today. One year it looked like we were down a little bit. I think it was like 2009. We did tear down a facility that year that had multiple buildings on one site. It was next to the old Holiday gas station, next to Northern Lumber. We had all those buildings that were rental houses, and there was a couple multi-factions there at the time. That came down during that period, so we don't really relate to, like if we did a larger facility, of how many buildings were taken down at that time. Numbers are pretty, I think, are kind of interesting actually. If you look at it a little bit and study through, you'll see the trend. That the largest trend I seen was the amount of mobile homes that were actually removed throughout this program. There's 37 total, but there was 3 of them between the period of 72 and 2004, and the remaining came after that. So that's kind of shows a little trend to me that you're taking some specs there. Kind of neat numbers anyways. So I guess with that, if you have any questions for me, I'd be more than happy.
Okay, questions, comments? Very good report on the 2017 report, building inspector. I understand that in the fourth quarter there was 46 permits?
46 permits in the fourth quarter, correct. Basically what that comes to, Mayor, is those are a lot of small projects that you're seeing there, doors, windows, mechanical. So you're not seeing the number rise that much because you're doing the permit count on this bottom chart. We're having trouble with that chart where it's not actually reading the way it should to bring it together. And the quarter, you also have to remember, it's the quarterly report, so you can see October we spiked, and then we dropped off in November and December. So the number was higher in that month. sometimes they'll get the permits in place and not do the work till a later date too, so there's still activity being completed. Oh, there's one other thing I didn't mention there, on the second chart there where you don't see any blue for 2015. The reason you're not seeing any there for that line is that we did not start separating the permits into all those categories until 16, so that's why you're not seeing anything there.
Which chart are you looking at?
That's the middle one there where it says windows and doors and siding. There's no blue line there because of 15. We didn't have that separation of permits. Separate to the state of Minnesota, it's basically the 3 categories. It's building, plumbing, and mechanical. At a request of staff, I was asked to separate them into the smaller portions there, and we didn't start that till 16, so that's why you're not.
Further questions? Councilor Droba.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but since we have you at a council meeting, I just want to ask the question. We're talking about demolishing buildings and stuff. Do you have any information of where we're at on the ICO building out by Kmart? It comes up.
That one I can't answer. We did have a little bit of contact with them, but I haven't really resolved anything on it to get any further.
And my other question is, and maybe the fire chief can help us with this one too. With the fire that happened at the TP Motel, are we making any strides to have them fix the problem or move forward with getting rid of a blight on 53 coming into town?
That is one that's going to have to follow, I guess, to answer. There's been some projection of possibility of sale, different actions. Nothing's been confirmed. We have not pushed them to the point to say fix it or do what we have to do. That answers your question.
Yes. No, I understand. This probably isn't the right venue to answer that question anyway.
Actually, never really started to proceed with it because there's been that possibility of a sale, kind of waiting for the insurance and everything to come through at the time to help us to relate to it.
Thank you. Like I said, not to put you on the spot, it's just questions that I had.
No problem.
Certainly, Councilor Droba, you're correct. There's a lot of interest on those several items, the ICO building and the TP Motel. So it'll be interesting to know. We never get notified on the settlement of insurances on commercial structures.
We do not get notification of that, no. So we're dealing with the owners only, and then.
Further comments or questions? Great year, well done, lots of activity.
Thank you.
City Administrator, we have the Department of Public Works report, which is terrific reading. Just an unbelievable amount of activity with our street and water department, water and sewer group.
There is, Mr. Mayor and Council, and you can see there's full pages of bullet line items, so there's a number of activities that are undertaken by our Public Works Department, and that's really in 3 different areas with the water department, the water treatment plant, and the street department, as well as the grounds department and building and grounds. So one of the things that was pointed out by the Public Works Director is that we had 3 major projects, and you can see those are essentially in the first 3 bullet points there. The first is the municipal state aid street project that was done on 15th Street. That was basically from Highway 53 to Industrial Avenue, and that was a reconstruction project. A local contractor, Bowman Asphalt Products, did that work, and the total cost for that was just under $250,000. The second major project that was undertaken was finishing by internal and external sandblasting the 500,000 gallon ground storage tank that we have at the water treatment plant. It's been a number of years since that plant was tank was reconditioned. So they did a lot of work on it, repainted it, primed it, and we expect it to last 20-plus years. That cost was $247,000 when all work was completed on it. There were some minor repairs done to an exterior catwalk and then vents in the system that comply with the OSHA standards. But that was an important project to get done, and we will have to consider doing the same type of work to our 2 elevated storage tanks at some point here in the near future. And the third project that we worked on that took some time was the 30-day inflow and infiltration study that we had worked on with a hired a private contractor to help us with that. So we did spent roughly a month or 6 weeks monitoring and tried to assess what the impact of that was with inflow and infiltration. That cost was just over $80,000, and we're part of our analysis of any problems we might have with inflow and infiltration. So, Public Works Department has been busy, and again, that was an annual report for 2017. So,
Thank you. Questions with regard to that or comments? I would like to lead off on the second page, about 2/3 of the way down. It talks about the 5 water main breaks and the approximate loss of water, about 600,000 gallons. And then the next bullet point with regard to the leak that they found, that leak possibly estimated water loss of over 1 million gallons. I mean, that is some significant amount of water that.
it is a significant amount, and that's one of the things that we need to do in some of our reporting to the state is we need to account for unallocated water, I think is the terminology that they for us to try and assess and maintain a sound system so that we minimize. I actually think that our water main breaks are less than what we've had in some of our more significant severe winters that we've had. 2013-14 comes 5 water main breaks, so we've been we want to make sure that we have ample ground cover, and if we don't, we want to make sure that we insulate our time with the movement of soils in the high water content we have with our clay soils. It's inevitable that you will always have some.
And I note on that same page, just above that, the rebuild of Green Acres Park, and with the Super Bowl being yesterday, that park received a $48,000 grant from the Super Bowl committee. I heard from a citizen in the Twin Cities that they had run a piece on all of the 52 items that they gave out, 52 grants, and that the visit to International Falls was one of the more memorable ones. And so it was great to hear, and certainly our street department gets pulled in a lot of different directions, and working on parks and water and sewer and storm sewers and sidewalks and everything else. And we've also made a lot of great work on changing lighting, which is going to reduce costs and help us to be more efficient also. So I think outstanding work by our public works crews. Other questions or discussions by council members or anyone? Please share with the Public Works Department. Very well done for 2017. Thank you. I will go to reports of the mayor, council committees, boards, and commissions. Councilor Groba.
I just have one thing. For all the council members, I believe you got in your mailbox a letter from the Good Samaritan Society. They received the Bronze Award for Excellence, and they have a presentation on February 28th, 2018 at 5:30. Highly would like us to attend. So if you are available, please attend. I'll be there. There's food. Well, and it's a good cause, I mean, but they have food too.
Can't beat that. Further from council committees, boards and commissions. On the mayor's report, on the very last item on the second page, I just bring to your attention that there's another meeting of the Northern Minnesota mayors and Metro mayors. This time it will be hosted by the city of Duluth and Mayor Larson there. And we'll be meeting this Thursday and Friday. And I wasn't sure if requires approval for every one of these to be asked for travel approval from the council, or if it was for all of these meetings that are going to be held, probably several of them. In addition, the mayor asked if I would attend a meeting on that lunch on Friday with a number of the area foundations, and their goal is to seek input on how they can do a better job of addressing needs for communities between rural and urban. So I will be attending that also. So if I don't have your approval, I would ask approval for travel expense for attending that series of meetings.
To my knowledge, I think we have to approve that. Am I correct, Mr. Administrator?
Well, my recollection was that I think you reference to that there would be several meetings for that ongoing, and
Oh, it was. We've already.
that's my recollection.
All right, thank you. Questions with regard to the mayor's report?
Are we satisfied with the recollection, or do we want to approve this and then verify? I don't know. I mean, we don't really want to.
For simplicity, authorize it through a motion.
Yeah, I think we should, since we don't really know what we've done. So on that note, I will make a motion that we approve the mayor's travel expenses for all meetings regarding the mayor's, is this the mayor's association?
Mayor's meetings, yes.
Mayor's meetings, mayor's association.
Not the association, it's just a number of rural...
Formal group of people.
Yep, rural
Formal
and
meetings.
metro mayors meeting together to talk about how to be one Minnesota.
I'll second.
Second by Councilor Drova. Discussion? Question?
Aye.
Vote yes, motion is carried and expenses are approved. Thank you. Further to come before the council. Audience, anyone in the audience bring anything to the attention of the council at this time?
As a lifelong resident of Crescent Drive, I really appreciate the rebuilding. But I'm wondering, will us people on that street be notified of the timetable for the work on it and the scope of it, and will we have any input into it? Drainage problems in front of my house. And so I'd like to just kind of know what they're planning on doing and that they're addressing.
Thank you. We'll be sure to have the Public Works Director contact you with regard to that drainage, because I know that they're going to be doing ditch work, as we talked about before, and talking about lowering that roadbed slightly to, and so all of that will be redone. It's been many, many years and a long time in coming.
I remember as a kid in the school bus on there that it was Highway 53. So that was a long time ago.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Thank you. Good to have you, and good comments. Further from the audience? Not, note the correspondence, and we have a budget and finance meeting on Tuesday, February 20th, because Monday is President's Day, And then the regular city council meeting is Tuesday, February 20th at 4:30. Nothing further to come before the council. We'll stand adjourned. Thank you.